This kind of came up like in I don't know how to say it so quickly, and then Lou and I talked about it, and I was so scared about it, and then later I decided to do it. Then in between doing it, kind of changed the topic. So my agile journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and as we all know, every one of us here has a different path that we took, and that kind of, with our experiences, our paths kind of collided, and then in between that, we all share our experiences. So this is my little bio. You see the cars there, that used to be my fun play. I'd actually used to sell those. And many people have experiences coming from waterfall, being project managers. I came from a car salesman point into agility. And so I'm married with two lovely daughters, and they are troublemakers. So this is going to be how we're going to talk about my experiences, the bad ones, the good ones, what I thought Agile should be, and also sometimes why we should always check our cultural depths. And then the good part is, first thing is to actually have the mindset and who is on your corner. And so without much ado, I would want to start with this quote by Jim Collins. Said that the first thing is to get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the driver's seats, and figure out where to drive to. And so talking about experiences, we know that Agile is supposed to be a team effort, and we all agree to that point. And there is no I in team. And I'm not too much of a basketball fan, but I watch basketball to the point. And I know that MJ is arguably the GOAT of basketball. And we know that he can single-handedly destroy a team. But at the same time, if his teammates do not do the needful, the little stuff, the nitty-gritty things like rebounding, like guiding other teams, other members, and passing the ball sometimes to him, he's not gonna be that great. And so Agile, if done well, we can be fluidly and work very well. And it can be a very invisible thing for us to see. And sometimes we just need to sit down and watch it work. I would go on a stretch to say that, that there is no company in the world that can proudly say that they do not believe in teamwork. It would also interest us to know that most companies state that their teams are very good at demonstrating teamwork in their projects. But the truth of the matter is that most teams rarely demonstrate the type of teamwork that can produce proven results. This is one of the worst things that we all face, and I faced earlier in my career. Johanna Rothman, like we all know, spoke about how some managers and what they should be. She said something that this is one of the worst things. She said something about, that managers in most agile shops, that they should show that their products so well, and instead of empowering employees, they try to dictate the tasks. And Rothman discusses the real management work that managers should be focused on. And she suggested that rather that managers should manage the project portfolio. They should help to define and refine the strategy for the organization and decide which project to start with. They should try as much as possible to build that trusting relationship, meeting with employees maybe once in a week or once in 2 weeks or every other week, depending on the iterations, and also lead in the hiring process. That is making sure that the right people are gotten to do the job. And then the very last one, providing an enabling environment and watch for obstacles to remove them. And so what is a manager responsible for? A manager is responsible for the growing of the people around them. They have to do like what they call the competency development, the performance enablement, and talent management that fall in their periphery. And so
Hey,
when you
Kevin,
don't,
I'm
hello?
sorry. Are you changing slides?
Yeah,
No,
that's what I
not yet.
was.
Because
Oh,
No,
it's
okay.
been on the same slide.
yes. No,
Okay.
not yet. No, not yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Wasn't
Yes,
sure. Thank you.
yes, yeah, yeah. And so the practical duties of a manager include building those high performance teams, establishing a mission and purpose so that the whole people can have an enabling ground to foster, an enabling ground to help. But when a manager doesn't trust agility or he doesn't trust his team's ability to work independently, he asserts himself and becomes the impediment. Just like Scrum Masters can also be an impediment if they decide to be accountable for removing impediments instead of being accountable for causing the removal of impediments. And so I come to that journey where I talk about my bad experience that I had being in a team with leaders or with a manager who doesn't really see the good in people. So had a manager who wanted to attend all the ceremonies, inserted themselves in the book of the morale of the team, and at the end of the day brought the whole morale to zero. At one point, he told me that he likes to try to facilitate the retro, and I kind of talked him out of it, but then he insisted that he has to do it. So one week I had the flu, I was out of the office, and it fell on the day of the retro, and he decided to be the one to handle the retro. And as it is, when he got in the room, this was when everybody was still in the office. So the whole team started seeing him coming. And so they all booked meetings and they started telling him they have meetings. And he didn't have the normal people to show up. And so he canceled it. And so when I came back the next week, he took me to the office and done me what we used to call shredding in the bank. He shredded me, he blamed me for not informing the team beforehand that he was going to do it. And at the end of the day, I sat with him and I told him that teams function better when they are not micromanaged, especially when they have a high degree of autonomy. I also made him to understand that he can actually cause the team to perform better if he creates an enabling environment, if he stops micromanaging, and he does not need to worry about overseeing us doing our job. He should just try to enhance our working environment. This actually worked for a week, or about two. And hell broke loose when the product owner had a family emergency and had to leave for a while. So he called me into next week, next in his office, and he said, I think since he's not around, you should try to do both jobs. I don't really see what the PO does, so this is your time to shine. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I want you to be the Scrum Master and the PO at the same time. And I'm like, no, we have an opportunity to bring in another PO from another team that can help us. There are people who can get from the organization that can help. Why would you want me to do both? And in simple terms, I told him that my job as a Scrum Master is to facilitate the self-organization within the team and protect the team from interferences. Why the PO is there just to make sure that the work runs, because if both roles collide, the PO is always the one that would dominate. He said no, because he believes that the job is not really much. I kind of tried to make him understand that the PO actually represents the interest of the customer, while I represent the interest of the team. And so combining us together is a recipe for disaster, because the PO is responsible for the what and the why, while I'm just responsible to the how. And so the argument went back and forth. He kind of sprung on me that product ownership is becoming diminished within the focus of that backlog management, which is what the PO is known for. He also talked about the true position and understanding the markets, testing, growth, and profitability. And it seems that me doing the two work will kind of enhance these two things. But let's not talk about the manager alone. So let's now talk about my grouse with the team when this thing happened, because I felt like with the team should have my back. They should be able to, once in a while say no. But at the same time, you also have an environment where you have contractors and who's being that at the end of the day, they're relying on the same manager to do the needful and maybe making them permanent. And so it became a big hassle. So the team voted, and we decided to make the tech lead the product owner. And so with the tech lead being the product owner, it was easier for us now to do the work. But at the same time, he did not leave that part alone. He was always there. He always felt like there is something he needs to do being in all the meetings. And so when you have the bad of a manager being the one helping or being the one actually causing the impediment instead of removing it, then that journey is not going to be fine. And especially when it was just my early years of being a Scrum Master and I'm just starting my journey. And so it comes to the part of the ugly experience of my journey. The ugly experience is the one that I actually don't always like to talk about because it kind of left a hole in my heart because of what happened or because of what I found out later. And so cultural depth is one thing we'll always talk about. All of us remember Thomas Edison. He once said that I haven't failed, I've only found 10,000 ways that won't work. And according to the 14th annual State of Agile report, culture is still a thing. It's the highest ranked challenge to adopting and scaling Agile. And it continues to relate as it relates to organizational cultures. And general organizational resistance to change, inadequate management, support and sponsorship, and the organizational culture at odds with Agile values remain in the top 5 challenges. And which is why we should look at cultural depth. My first real bad with leadership in Agile was when we were actually trying to help a team transition from waterfall ways of filing to Agile. My team were saddled with helping the documentation aspect of the business. And it was also an outfit that had so many homes housing individuals with learning developmental disabilities. We came in ready, very ready to work, and they had an office that was outside of Columbus, which takes about an hour 45 to 2 hours driving. So traveling between the cities was not a problem, but when you must travel in a single-digit temperature in winter with snow everywhere, and then you get to your destination, you find out that the office is not open. Meanwhile, you called like 2 hours earlier and they told you, oh, somebody's already there. Somebody's going to be there when you get there. And so it kind of brings you, gives you a really, what is going on? But that's not a problem to deter you when you actually want to make a change. And so during our work, we kind of found out that the filings were not really done at all. And ISPs and BSPs were littered everywhere. And there are no starting points. And one of the main reasons why we were actually there in the first place was because the state audit that indicted them for not really having a grasp of control of the ISPs and BSPs. And most importantly, there was actually no money trails. Documents were everywhere and know how to know how the individual's monies were spent. So I'm going to kind of make 2 things clear. I'm going to be using the word individual. This is the term used for people with disabilities who live in a group home or in what they call assisted living sometimes. And so I talked about ISP and BSP. So an ISP is an individual service plan, which is a written kind of written document or details of the support activities and resources required for that individual to achieve their personal goals. The individual service plan is kind of developed to articulate decisions that were taken or can be taken for that individual. And it's an agreement, it kind of made during one person to person process planning and information gathering, which kind of sometimes it includes maybe if the parents of the individual is there, they are guiding. If the parents are not the guardian, you also have some individuals who are actually their own guardians. And so they and their team sit together and they develop that plan for their support. So when these things are developed, you have so many things that go into them. And some of these plans goes around the whole of the US in all developmental disability cases. You must have an ISP. And the person, even though they may have difficulty in articulating themselves, they may not actually be verbal, but they are human beings and they also have rights. And so when you do not allow them to make those personal choices and preferences and about how their mental care is going to be helped and their behavioral needs and all the related maintenances, then you're actually infringing on their rights. And so we were supposed to help him to develop a plan so as to make sure that these plans, whenever the state asks for them, you can just get them with a click on the computer because everybody has a life goal. The plan is supposed to reflect the goals of the individual because as we are all human beings, we have different and unique people. And so each person should be unique to them and addresses their personal needs. And so the behavioral support plan is a little different. That one occurs maybe monthly or twice a month. Is actually a kind of a behavioral plan that assists those of them that have some behavioral problems so as to articulate them to positive behaviors and helping in reducing the challenging or dangerous behaviors that they have. So the plan may include teaching, improved communication, increasing relationships, using clinical interventions, education, teaching them how to work and be useful in the society. And so we went into this thinking that we were actually working for the good of the society. We were actually going to make a mark. And so agility combined with good work, combined with charity, I mean, just everything, it can't get better than this. And so when we got there, we found out that actually the elephant in the room wasn't just the ISP. It was just that there were so many things that were not tracked. There are things called incident reports that should be filed each time something happens. Even if an individual poked themselves with a pen, there should be a paper trail of what happened. And we found out that even the staff in some of these homes were not even, they can't account for anything. There were no logs for anything. Then the commonality of what we actually find out was that this was all about the money. It was all about the Benjamins because money was the commonality, money was the driver. And we were actually brought to make his system agile and not to investigate him. That was what he told me one of those days. And so it kind of got to a point where it's either I stay on, collect the money, and believe that I'm doing good, or just walk away because it actually affected my psychological safety, kind of thinking that you're actually working for a man who is actually defrauding people that is actually supposed to be taken care of. And so we had a meeting, and we had a meeting with the county, had a meeting with the city that we were reporting some of these things to. And they brought to our notice all the money trails that were going on. And so instead of helping him to actually make his system agile, we actually helped him to get locked up and jailed. Because he did not understand the enormity of what he's doing. He did not even understand the reason why he's doing that job. All he had in the forefront was he was in there to make money. And it got to a point that we'll go to houses, you see these people come to you. Hold on 1 second. You see these people come to you and tell you things that are going on, how their monies are being used to do other things, how they are not getting their hair cut, how they've not changed clothes, and for a while. Meanwhile, the state pays this money into these accounts. And instead of him using that money for what they were supposed to be meant to be used to, he was actually using it for other ways. And so I looked at the culture of that organization, the culture of him, what he was doing. And you find out that there are so many people like him out there who, at the end of you, are trying to actually work for the good of the commonality of the people, but they're actually taking advantage of the system. And so we ended up not actually changing the system, but we just kind of thought about going the other way around. And so my boss decided that we're just going to take all the trail of what we saw, put it in the system as he wants, but also forward some of our findings to the county and to the city. And so he was closed down. That was one of, like I said, it's not just because of what happened. It's not just because of how it happened, but it was why it happened. Because at the end of the day, every one of us here, we've had an encounter with one person or the other that have had a family, a friend that has a person with disability. But you also find out that there are also families who actually have people with disabilities and who also take advantage of that system. And so I know we're talking about agility, but there's no how I'm going to talk about Agile without remembering this particular episode and how much it kind of changed my outlook about those people working in that field, the people themselves, and the people who control how these people's lives evolve and how they live their life every day. And so we now come to the fun part. We talk about this quote here. I'm sorry, it has some bad adaptation. It says that if the only way for you to get people to do your bidding is through force or intimidation, you're neither a leader nor a boss. You can tell me the rest. And so I come to the part that is the most interesting part of it, and which is the good part of Agile. And I first asked this question. I want to open this up to people to actually ask. You can tell me, who do you have in your corner? Anybody can, when I mean who do you have in your corner, do you understand what I'm saying? Anybody can show me by just can say, who do you have in your corner?
For me, it's my boss.
Why?
Because she understands enough about Agile to let us go and do what we need to do and not stand in our way. But she also keeps us within the framework of what she's doing in the PMO department.
Okay.
So we have support at the leadership level because she's taking what we do above her. So that's helping drive some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Understanding and acceptance.
Nice.
Yeah. God,
yeah.
I promised Rick I was going to stay quiet. I was going to behave. but with that last slide and this slide, it's like a punch. You know, like when somebody punches you in the stomach, it takes out the wind out of you.
Yes.
You hit me with that, man, because that is just so powerful. So powerful for me. You know, I was like, wow, I knew you were great, but now you really have earned the great Godwin thing, because I mean, you made me think of experience that I had was similar with a not cool dude.
Yeah.
Okay. And the funny part is that I lived through that with Leon, and I guess that's how we became such good friends.
Yeah.
Because we lived through that where somebody tried to inflict agility on other people, and you brought that story home for me, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And so it brings me to this part that says that talent wins. A quote by Michael Jordan said, "Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships." And the one from Patrick, this is actually the one that gets me more. So that, remember, teamwork begins by building a trust, and the only way to do that is to overcome all our need for invariability. And so when I asked who was in your corner, I just wanted to know, who do you look up to? And Victoria said it perfectly. I had to find somebody to talk to all the time, because coming from where I was coming from, like when I told my boss that I was going to leave, even though I have an accent and I'm trying to sell $250,000 cars to some, I'm not being racial here, to some white man who does not hear a bit of what I'm talking about. And so, but the good thing about selling these cars is that they actually sell themselves. And so all they need you is to just BS yourself around, and you're out of that. So you come out, and which is what I was brought up to always say: I don't know it, I can ask, or this is what it was. And so at the end of the day, you try to sell this $250,000 car to somebody, and they ask you some tricky technical questions, because some of these guys have been buying these cars even before I was born, or while I was in high school or something. And so they ask you one question, I'll be like, oh, I don't know that. Can I go ask my boss? He'll be like, come back. I just wanted to know if you lie. And so, so when I came into agility, I had something going on, but I thought it wasn't what I wanted. But in between it, I had to look for who should be on my corner. And I got a whole lot of other people out there. But then for me, I think the first thing was to have the mindset. And that is what I asked. What exactly is that agile mindset? Because every book out there, every agile evangelist out there throws out this concept of an agile mindset. But defining it, it's always difficult. So I would also like to have you guys, what is actually your agile mindset? Who can actually tell me what their agile mindset is?
Well, not to throw out Andrea under the bus, Godwin, but I think she hit it. It means honesty and integrity.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Sorry, I'm not looking at the chat. And that was what it was for me. Because for me, I grew up knowing that if I bring a pen that wasn't mine home from school, I get a whooping. Even if it's a friend gave it to me. Like, as long as my dad didn't buy it, you didn't own it. And so I grew up with that, knowing that integrity plus hard work would take you further than where you want to be. And so Susan McIntosh kind of says this in one way. She described agile mindset as an agile mindset is that set of attitudes supporting an agile working environment, which includes respect, collaboration, improvement and learning cycles, pride in ownership, focusing on delivering value, and the ability to adapt to change. And this mindset, it's what is actually relative, or what is necessary for us to cultivate that high-performing teams, which in turn delivers value for every of our customers. And so I'm not going to sit down here and talk about every experience that I've had as a good experience, but I think the best of the experience is the experience that I get from the Agile community, because instead of when two Agilists come together, great things happen. And so my own good of it was that I have been taught, and I have been tutored, and I've been coached by people for free. And so sometimes the only way I can actually believe in Agile, and the only way that statement of my Agile journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly, can actually come home to roost for me. It's when I'm paying it forward. And that is the reason why I volunteer in so many other Agile communities. I try to help other people who are where I was some 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And so paying it forward for me was a way I could actually give my mind that, oh, I have actually done what I'm supposed to do. And so I try as much as possible to make sure that I'm paying it forward. I'm doing what the needful is. I'm also helping my teams in working. I've had great teams, and I've had great managers, and I've had great working relationship with people. But I think the greatest of them all, it's when you have a retro and your team is happy and people are working together. People are working together, not just because the system said they should work together. People are working together because there is love in between. There is teamwork, there is cohesion, there is brotherly love, not just that kind of love just because, oh, let's say that we love each other for the work, but there is that cohesion between everybody and the commonality there. It's that team. And so that is what makes it up for me. And without much ado, I would tell you this. This is the one that stays with me more, by Albert Einstein. It says, learn from yesterday, live for today, and hope for tomorrow. The important thing is not to stop questioning. You know, and the journey continues, as a matter of fact. But how did I get where I am? And why was the journey good for me? Was because I came into the journey with an open mind. I was vulnerable. I allowed people to tutor me. I allowed people to tell me when I'm wrong. I accepted when I was wrong, and I said sorry even when I didn't need to. On second note, I became a big lifelong learner. I wanted to learn. And so I opened up my mind. I got curious. I read little books. I invested money in other things that I wasn't even supposed to do. But it all come to home because I wanted to know what more than what I knew yesterday. When I was in college back home, I went into this professor's office one day and I saw this quote, which was like a little inscription. It said, what did I learn today? And so that stood with me. And so I wrote it out, gave it to some guy in our department. He made a drawing of me standing with that quote right there. And so every time I come into my room, I see that staring at me. And so instead of me going to while away with friends, going to party, I just try just to get one thing that, okay, if I wake up tomorrow and ask myself, what did I learn yesterday? I can pinpoint it to this, that this was what I learned yesterday. So build your inner circle, because what I believe in life is that the people that are around your inner circle, the kind of determines who you are. If you just have friends who talk, all they talk about, it's babes, if you're a guy, or all they talk about is going to the pub, and all you talk about is what the trend is. You talk about sports, never talk about how you guys are going to grow together. Then you might need another circle. Then get a coach on your side. You cannot do it alone. Even coaches have coaches. LeBron James is the best player in the world. He still needs a coach. He can do everything with the basketball. He has a coach. Then, this is the most important one for me. It's get a left tackle. I do not know so much about football. By the way, it is actually not football. It should be called advanced handball. So we'll talk about that later. So get you a left tackle, because I came to realize that when I was reading, I found out that the left tackle is the guy that helps the quarterback, especially the right-handed ones, to see their blind sides. And so get a left tackle, that person that helps you to see your blind side, so that when you're going on the wrong path, they help you to steer you back to the right side. Then plan to embrace change and be the change you desire. You know, You can only be that change that you desire, because when you want change, but you don't want to invest in changes, or you just don't want to do anything that depicts change, then what is the change we're looking for? So embrace change, because the only thing that is constant in this whole wide world is change. And then please be the pig and not the chicken, because we all know that story. Don't just be involved, be committed. Because if you're just involved, then you don't have a skin in the game. Be committed. So this driving journey has been good. I have some co-drivers here, and I also have some navigators. Some of the navigators are the people I've listed here. I may not know everybody's name, but my co-drivers are also here. I've had fun being around some of the most wonderful people, like Anu, like Kemiraji, like Marcelo, like Art, like Rick, like Coach, like Savannah Riot, who actually was one of the very first people in those days that we talk whenever I need help, ping her. And Nelu, Victoria, you inspire me all the time. This group and many other groups that I belong to, those are my co-drivers and my navigators. And so I may not have prepared this a very long shit, but I felt like I just needed to talk about these little experiences and the way it had gone for me. Like I said earlier, our journeys are different, but our experiences sometimes kind of shows where our journeys are going, and the way we go about it also collude with other people. So thank you for listening to my BS. That's my time. So any questions?